We're hearing of some backlogs. At one point, we heard of wait times of up to 8 weeks.
Tech leaders are dealing with a global chip shortage. Find out what they're doing to keep up with production.
This flexibility in the labor market and teleworking, it will have an impact on where we live. Would we live in urban areas or would we live in rural areas? And also it will have an impact on how much office space companies will use.
Plus, an economist enters the conversation and gives insight on how the pandemic has affected the economy and the hybrid workforce. This episode of Get Witty with It is brought to you by InfoSystems. InfoSystems has provided reliable IT solutions to build and maintain strong and secure systems for both SMBs and enterprise organizations. Learn more at infosystems.biz. Hello and welcome to Get Witty with It, Women Talk Tech, a podcast designed for women in the IT channel. I'm your host, Kenna Johnson with the Channel Company. Today, we're getting our panel's perspective on how businesses are dealing with the unexpected effects of the pandemic. We're talking about a global chip shortage, identity fraud, and transitioning to work back on location in the office. So let's get to know our panel. Let's start off with you, Erika.
Hi, my name is Erika Irby. I'm the Director Go-to-Market of DPSS for North America at Microsoft.
Very good. And Kelly?
Hi, I'm Kelly Nuckolls. I am the Vice President of Marketing and Alliances at InfoSystems.
Thank you so much for joining me, ladies. Let's just dive right in. Now, the chip shortage is a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, which increased demand for electronics such as cell phones and laptops to the point where production could not keep up pace with the demand. Erika, have you seen that in your industry?
We are seeing that. We're hearing of some backlogs. At one point, we heard of wait times of up to 8 weeks, but I have heard that has decreased. To mitigate this, we are trying very hard to work very closely with our OEM and our Silicon Valley partners. They, of course, have very intense mitigation plans, and we're just trying to support them in that. We are also, of course, working very closely with our channel partners, particularly our distributors, to drive any available inventory to critical places. We also believe that messaging and the quality of the Microsoft solution, and of course, any vendor solution, really plays a role here as well. Good things are easier to wait for. I would also say that this entire experience has helped us be much more aligned with our partners really across the whole channel, possibly than ever before, because communication and coordination has really been just critical.
And Kelly, are you seeing the same thing?
Yeah, exactly the same. And I'm on the partner side of that, Erika. So I echo exactly what you said. To me, though, I think people see this chip shortage as an IT issue, but it's really not just our issue in the IT field. It's a global issue. I mean, if you've tried to rent a car or buy a video game system to entertain your kids while they're quarantined, it's really difficult. And it's not just for us in this industry, but it's impacting really everything that we do. For me and for our company at InfoSystems, it has just brought us to a very honest place with our partners and our distributors and our clients, letting them know that, of delays ahead of time and, alternating solutions if possible to mitigate those delays if there's an immediate need, or just, being proactive and staying on top of inventory sources so that we can, advise on these alternative solutions ahead of time.
I think you're totally right, and it is very interesting, the impact on other industries and just what an unbelievable web of logistics, and how it leads back to, a source of something that is used for so many different things. And I would echo, we have seen some incredibly creative responses from some of our partners, and because some of them, of course, work with a wealth of customers in various different industries, and some of them are very critical, like healthcare and even education, and places where they have to come up with a solution.
Now let's move on to one other topic. Another issue we've been seeing is the rise of fraud, people stealing identities, using them to collect unemployment. Last year, the Federal Trade Commission received more than 400,000 complaints from customers who said that their identities had been misused to apply for government benefits. Erika, have you seen this in your industry too as well?
Yes, and it is incredibly frightening. It's unfortunately, I think, pretty common. And the time that we live in now with this rise of cybercrime and hacking events and, criminals holding data hostage in exchange for, cryptocurrency. And in some ways, I really think that the rise of popularity and this intrigue around, cryptocurrency and Elon Musk, even he sends one tweet, right, and the universe goes crazy. I think inadvertently, it's actually fueled the rise in cyber attacks. I would say, though, the truth is these unscrupulous characters, looking to take advantage of, weaknesses in the system, whether it's a bug or a hole or, a loophole, whatever, to get into a system, whether it's at home or a business. This has been around for a long time. And, it used to be scam artists on the phone. And now, of course, that's, breaking into databases. And in some cases, these breaches are increasingly sophisticated. And I also think with the current situation, with everything, happening with the economy, some people are becoming desperate and they are looking for something, to either a source of income or whatever the case may be. But I think the vast majority of these cases are folks capitalizing on our governments right now, this large investment, in Americans who are out of work and their weaknesses in the tracking systems. And frankly, the sheer amount of time and investigation that it would take to solve and find these criminals and prosecute them is immense. I just would add that the best defense that I have seen is just a really strong offense. And I would recommend, I used to work at a company for backup and replication of data. And so we talked about this a lot. For home security, there are outstanding brands like Norton LifeLock or Carbonite. And for businesses, that absolutely hands down recommend Veeam to protect and to recover that data, because protection is one thing, but if it is, taken, compromised, then recovery is your best defense there.
Kelly, are you seeing this type of fraud as well?
I would like to say I don't think so within our company, but you don't really know. The scary part about the unemployment fraud is you're thinking back to this, I want to say this time last year, a little bit before this time last year, there's so much pressure on HR departments and unemployment offices and the government and so many various sources to get the stimulus, to get the help and get the aid to the people that were unemployed, that so many parts became broken. Instead of actually taking the time for the due diligence and the paperwork and the proper document trails, it was how quickly can we get the financials to support to the people that need it. And so with that, so many different breakdowns happened. And the scary part is that, likely a lot of it came from really people's want to help quickly, as opposed to, not necessarily wanting to take away from the rationale that was put in place to make sure these were properly done, but really make sure everyone has the support they need to take care of their families. To echo Erika, really, strong offense is the best thing that you can do, making sure that teams, particularly HR departments that hold all of that critical personal information, are well trained, regular new training complete with simulated attacks. It's fairly easy to figure out where your weak links are in the chain and train them the right way.
And finally, let's talk about returning back to work. I know many businesses are doing some hybrid return back to work. Some are going fully. I know businesses out here, I live in New York, many of them are returning back to work in September. Let's go with you, Kelly. Are you doing a hybrid thing or are you continuing to work from home?
We are, well, personally, I've worked remotely for about 10 years. So my change was a little bit different. It was becoming more of a work-life blend as opposed to a work from home. And so that's a new normal for me, just trying to figure out how to actually piece together what I would normally do in a day with all of the actionable conversations that people want to happen. I think over the last 18 months, everyone has really wanted to have more one-on-one conversations via webinar. So the biggest struggle that I have is really time management and being able to put together, true executable projects and work on those when my days are filled with back-to-back phone calls. And it really didn't used to be this way. This last couple of years has made everyone feel like a webinar is the most productive thing that you can do. If you're not having webinars and you're not on video all day, are you actually working? And it's tough. But for us as a company, we're truly, working as a hybrid model. A lot of people were remote before and will continue to be remote after. And some of our staff that were in office, most days are going to end up being mostly remote. So it's been a big transition, but really for us in the technology industry, it's something that we're fairly used to.
And Erika?
I wrote down the work-life blend. I love that better than the balance. And I totally agree on your perception of this kind of skewed productivity, related to being on camera and WebExes. My day is consumed with that too. And sometimes I'm like, when do I do work? So I totally hear you. I think what's very interesting about this is that employees are going to lead here, I think, more than the employers. People have now experienced this freedom and flexibility of working from home. And I personally think in many cases, output and productivity has increased, dramatically because of this flexibility. And I think a lot of companies have taken notice of that. And as a result, morale has improved and business is, continuing on in many cases. And in some cases, it's even grown. And that being said, I would also say that I'm not sure working from home is necessarily for everyone. Depends on, their home space or job duties. Some jobs are just better, inclined in the office. There are so many factors that can impact, someone's ability to work from home, both professionally and personally, and be successful with that. And some of those are even, social. From a Microsoft perspective, as the conversation is here with our companies, we are also fully embracing this hybrid work approach, this blend. I like this, as I'm going to call this now. And they are leaving many decisions up to the employees and our managers. And I really do appreciate that, because they are providing a structure and they have a lot of return to work safety guidelines, and they just really provide us more than anything options on what we think works best for us and our families and our roles.
Well, and with that, I think that I've seen a lot more spotlight on mental health this past year than I've seen ever. A lot of different partners and organizations that I work with actually have incorporated mental health days, maybe once a quarter, that are just kind of pop-up Fridays where everyone can disconnect. And I think that's very reflective of us saying we're on camera all the time. This has transitioned us to being on call all the time, and that sense of urgency, and really giving a little bit of time back that this has taken away from us.
Absolutely. And one thing Microsoft does here, and I've only been on board for 8 months, and I noticed this immediately and I really enjoyed it, is about once a month, they also encourage you to block a day off where you just can't have meetings. And they call it like a day of learning. So it's, more about you just focusing on maybe your compliance training that you need, to do to stay safe on the internet, for example, or avoid hackers, or, other training that you need to do, or just work on that project that you need to sit down and really think about and build out your deck or whatever it is and look at your data. And I really appreciate those days more and more.
All right, Erika, Kelly, thank you so much for joining me today, and thank you for your insight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Coming up, an economist enters the conversation and discusses the financial effect COVID-19 had on businesses. We'll be right back. This episode of Get Witty With It is brought to you by Microsoft. Its mission is to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. Learn more at Microsoft.com. Welcome back. We're joined by Diamando Afxentiou, economist at New York Institute of Technology. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for inviting me.
From your perspective, what does the chip shortage mean for our economy?
The chip shortage happened because of the global shutdown. We had a freeze in the production of chips, And at the same time, we had an increase in the demand for electronics because people were setting their home offices. This shortage in the chips, we see it affecting industries that they are using chips, like computers, electronics, appliances, cars. It's projected that General Motors and Ford, they may lose about $2 billion in earnings each company because of the chip shortage. So this chip shortage decreased production, and Goldman Sachs expects a decline in the GDP of about 1%. We also see increase in prices in electronics and cars. I believe these price increases will be temporary because the chip shortage is going to be coming to an end soon. I believe by the end of this year, the chip shortage is going to come to an end because we see American companies producing domestically. Intel announced the building of 2 new plants to produce chips in the United States. And also the Senate passed the FABS Care, facilitating American-built Semiconductor Act. And the good news is that the US manufacturing, it will increase.
Another thing we've been seeing is the rise of identity and unemployment fraud. How will this impact our economy?
First of all, the reason we see this increase in unemployment theft is because of the pandemic. We see unprecedented increase in claims for unemployment benefits. And at the same time, we have the creation of new programs. The program, the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program, PUA, it's very susceptible to theft because this program provides benefits to self-employed individuals. And these claims, they are self-reported without using the W-2s, thus more susceptible to fraud. What is the impact of the fraud? Of course, the government is spending more money and more time to investigate this fraud, taking time away from processing legitimate claims. And at the same time, of course, there is a burden to business to be vigilant, to inform their employees. And of course, for the individuals let's say, to be, it's a burden, excuse me. And also it's a burden to individuals that their identity has been stolen.
Absolutely. Now, as we shift to normalcy and people return back to work, how will this affect businesses and our economy?
I believe the pandemic is going to have a positive impact on the labor market and on the economy as well. During the pandemic, people were teleworking. And that shows the employers that workers can be productive even if they are not in the office. And therefore, I believe employees, some employees, I would say, they like the flexibility of having your own time and working from home. And many employers will provide that. This flexibility in the labor market and teleworking, it will have an impact on where we live. Would we live in urban areas or would we live in rural areas? And also it will have an impact on how much office space companies will use. So I believe these changes in the labor market, it will have an impact on the residential and commercial real estate. Also, the pandemic, it will influence the way we are shopping. People, they didn't shop online, and all of a sudden, because of the pandemic, they learn how to shop online. Even older workers, they order in their groceries from online. I believe this is going to have an impact as well in the way we are shopping, and that is going to have an impact on urban centers and shopping centers. I also believe we're going to see changes in the higher education. When the pandemic happened, we went online, and the new technologies that we used, I think we're going to continue using them in the future. So just to sum up, I believe the pandemic is going to have lasting long-term effects on the economy. We're going to see this, we're going to see the flexibility in the labor market with teleworking. We're going to see changes in how we shop and in the shopping, more choices, I would say, for consumers. We're going to see changes in higher education. I believe the higher education, it will be more affordable and more accessible. And also I want to add that I believe that we're going to see some increases in real wages. We see that the economy is growing. Last quarter, it grew at 6.4%. It is expected to grow at double digits in the second quarter, but the labor market is very tight. We see the quit rates going up, which is a very good signal that the employees are very confident. So I believe that we're going to see some wage increases, and those are very welcome, especially for the lower quantiles.
Diamando, thank you so much for joining me today and for your insight.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you again for listening today. Get Witty With It is a production of The Channel Company, the parent company of CRN. You can listen to more of this podcast and our other series on CRN TV, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. I'm Kenna Johnson. Stay safe and find ways to keep smiling.